Another question I'm obligated to ask every publishing professional I can is about indie publishing and the indie publishing revolution. So, question that I have for everybody is as publishing continues to change, and obviously I don't think there's anybody that could stand here and say, well, this is the future of publishing, and this is exactly what's going to happen. But as the means to publish and distribute a book become more widespread and more available, how do you see the role of literary agents and editors changing, or do you?
I don't really see a big change there. I think that the possibility of self-publishing or indie publishing, to use the more common term today, is great, and I think it's great for certain people. I think, in particular, there are lots of writers out there who, waste a lot of time and money on projects that are probably not going to ultimately be very marketable in mainstream publishing. And, just to have the possibility of holding a book in their hands, like maybe it's a family story or something like that. I think it's wonderful to be able to point, like when I meet writers like that at a conference, I love being able to point them in the direction of like Amazon KDP or some other platform to be able to get that book done. So I think that's great. As far as, is it changing the face of publishing? When I first started as an agent 10 years ago, there were the topic of conversation in publishing was, is publishing going to go the way of the music industry? Is the ebook going to, completely destroy the face of publishing as we know it? And, that's clearly not happened. And indie publishing is kind of an offshoot of the possibility of having a digital based publishing model. And that I just think the issue is that the content, the role of the content curator is always going to be an important one, and the role of the content creator is always going to be an important one. And the ability to kind of matchmake the people who create the content with the people who know how to distribute the content and make sure that it's discoverable. That's always going to be an important role. So I don't see publishing dying out just because of that, for sure.
No, not dying out, just kind of changing and
changing the model. Yeah, I don't see it. I mean, I think that there's always going to be the role of an agent somewhere along the line. And the other thing about self-publishing, and this won't come as news to you, I'm sure, but there's a very large gap between the people who are able to make a lot of money in self-publishing and really have a viable career of it, and the vast majority of people who, really are unable to kind of do the kind of constant travel and legwork that you would need to do, because, you're serving the role of every aspect of a publishing company when you're self-publishing. You're being the marketing department, you're being the distribution, you're being production, you're being managing editorial, you're being the copy editor, you're being the book designer, you're doing everything. And it's just not a very viable job for one person. There are a few high energy people out there who've managed to make it work. And kudos to them. But I think for a lot of people, it's just not that viable.
Fair enough. Never to be competitive, but I have to point out that in terms of making a sustainable level of income, I might point out that is also sometimes difficult on the traditional side as well.
Very true.
And something I'd like to just kind of speak into existence. What I'd like to see is I'm chatting with editors who are now who worked with big houses, who are now either going completely freelance or who are offering freelance services in addition to their role with a larger house. Certainly seeing that with some book publicists. I'd like to see more people branching out and making those services so that there is no you don't have to make that distinction between self-publishing and indie publishing, because I think it's kind of like the lawyer who represents themselves as a fool for a client. I think there's something similar to if you're going in with self-publishing, it's me, baby, all me, and I'm going to do everything, is probably a recipe for disaster. So the more people that can maybe be made available to boost indie published authors who reach a certain level, I would love to see that. Not a question there, just speaking my desire into existence.
No, I can see that having a little bit of infrastructure would be very helpful.
One more question I'm obligated to ask because we wouldn't be the Middle Grade Ninja podcast if I didn't ask it, and then we'll move on and we'll talk more about agenting. But Jennifer Mattson, have you ever seen a flying saucer, and do you believe it?
I have never seen a flying saucer. I don't disbelieve them. I think that as I said, I'm a great lover of fantasy and speculative fiction, and that includes some forms of science fiction. And I think that in order to really love those genres, there has to be some corner of your being that believes that there is probably life out there. And also, I think right now, with all the dire reports about climate change and food shortages and disappearing biodiversity, and I won't get any further into politics than that, but with all that, I feel like it's very reassuring to me to have that belief.
It would be very satisfying and great for us. On the other hand, as a storyteller, I'd be a little bit annoyed that we've got a Deus Ex Machina happening right in front of us. A god lands on the battlefield and sorts everything out. No, humanity, get your stuff together. We can do this.